I hope these blogs on the four horsemen are helping you. They're really hard. There's so much information, but I'm really trying to condense it down to, a palatable amount of minutes, so you're not sitting here for 30 minutes watching me ramble. The next horseman that I want to talk about is contempt. And according to John Gottman, the number one predictor of divorce today in marriage is contempt. And as I alluded to when I first talked about the four horsemen, contempt is probably one of the most prevalent emotions and feelings during the disclosure of infidelity, and particularly by the betrayed spouse, and rightly so. Now, contempt only makes things worse because contempt isn't about problem solving, it's about belittling, humiliating, demeaning, torturing, just really lashing out and making your spouse hurt the way you're hurting. The problem is, I think John Gottman said it this way, it's impossible to reconcile with your mate when you're convinced that your mate is disgusted at you or by you. And how many times did I feel disgusted by Samantha? If Samantha wanted to infuriate me, she would do one thing. She would roll her eyes when I was passionately not trying to torment her, not trying to debate or lash out. I was just vehemently trying to communicate how I was feeling. And she would do this. She would just go, and a screw would come loose inside of me. I would lose my mind. I remember one time we were doing that and she rolled her eyes. She just went, yeah, yeah. And I literally grabbed the pillow on the bed because we were fighting over the bed, and I just punched it so many times the next day. I was sore as all get out. She looked at me her eyes were like, oh my gosh, I've never raised my hand at Samantha. She's never felt as though I was going to do anything violent towards her or the kids. But in that moment, I just snapped and I punched that pillow. I'll never forget the joy, the elation as I punched that pillow. I mean, this is real talk, right? And so don't pretend like you don't know how to push your partner's buttons. You do. And so contempt is where I just go, I'm going to push your buttons. Here they come. How's that feel? I'm pushing right there. There it is. And we just push and we push and we push. It doesn't help. It doesn't resolve any issues at all. In infidelity, you have to fight against it. So let me give you some help on how to deal in some countermeasures, if you will, for contempt. If you're a betrayed spouse and your unfaithful spouse is displaying contempt towards you, realize it's because, number one, they may be so angry at themselves, they're projecting it on you. Number two, they may be dealing with so much shame that they're completely confused. And so instead of just owning it, they're going to blame you. They're going to say it was your fault if you'd have done this, if you'd have done that, because that fuels the contempt, right? And so you have to realize that you can't play the game. Again, this is for the betrayed. You can't play the blame game. You can't do the find the bad guy. You can't fight with the contemptuous nature. You have to realize the unfaithful, if they're displaying contempt, when they're the one that's cheated, they've got issues. And so they've got so many things going on inside of them that you're going to have to disengage and say, listen, I'm not going to get into the blame game. I'm not going to get into dealing with contempt. I'm not going to get into this, who is the worst individual here, because we can't find a resolution that way. You're going to have to find a safe place. You're going to have to find a safe third party. You're going to have to maybe get into a small group like some of the things that we do on the course, because that's a safe environment to not communicate contemptively, but to communicate rationally. And even though it's emotional, you can communicate emotionally in a rational way without attacking, demeaning, belittling, or humiliating. The reason that the unfaithful is being contemptuous, again, to reiterate, is because there's so much blame or accusation. There's so many unresolved issues inside of them. You trying to jump out there and fix it will only backfire. And so you've got to take some steps to say, no, no, no. I know. And Samantha finally got smart one day. She realized, no, no, no. If I get into these issues and all that, I can't win. I've got to get with Rick. Because if I get with Rick, then it's safe. So as a betrayed, for your own contempt, which obviously is legitimate, you've just had your world shattered, I would tell you that one of the best things that you can do is, number one, find someone who's safe, same-sexed, who cares for you and won't try and give you advice, but that'll just listen. That'll let you yell, scream, cuss, whatever you need to do to get it out, and then go, man, I love you. You want to go get a glass of wine? You want to talk? You want to just hang out? You want to watch a movie? They're not going to tell you, well, what you need to do, and you need to do this. That's not safety. You want a safe place that you can just vent and get it all out. Ultimately, one day that'll be your spouse, but right now it's that third person that can just care for you and be a safe place. Now, if you're an unfaithful and you're dealing with the contempt of the betrayed spouse, realize it's normal. I'm sorry, but I got to say it this way. They are that way because of what you've done. And the best thing that you can do is be a safe place for that anger to come to and not get defensive. Don't stonewall. Don't fire back. Just simply say, man, I'm incredibly sorry. I know that I have completely devastated you, and I will do whatever it takes to help you heal. Don't offer excuses. Don't blame. Don't justify. No matter what you're feeling, no matter what the voice is in the back of your mind that wants to say, well, if you'd have done this, and you know what, this is your payoff for all the rejection. No, no, no. That voice is not a healing voice. You cannot listen to that voice. You've got to own it, display empathy, display grief, and be a safe place so that they can come to you and feel as though you are a safe person and you're not going to be contemptuous back. But as long as they feel resistance, as long as they feel a contempt by you, a justification, a minimization, a defensiveness, or what have you, it's going to continue to happen, and someone has to break the cycle. And one of the best ways to diffuse contempt is to embrace it and own it, and then eventually take a timeout. I know I've talked about the timeout in almost all of these horsemen, but you have to do it because there's only so much that either of you can take. There's only so much that you can embrace. There's only so much that you can do. And for Samantha and I, we wouldn't talk for longer than about an hour. And that was if things were going well. But eventually we would say, okay, 48 minutes, 58 minutes, let's take a time out. For some people it's maybe 30 minutes, maybe 20, I don't know. But you've got to be able to break from the high intensity communication, because that's what's going to pave the way to come back another time soon and continue the discussion and diffuse all of these horsemen one by one.